Boom, we're live. Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt with Foulball Productions. This is the first episode of the very cleverly named Film Talk with Matt and Jared. I don't do titles. I'm very bad at titles. But this is first episode is my friend Jared.
I'm Jared.
Jared, a filmmaker friend of mine, very smart guy, passionate cinema lover, much like myself. And I think we have really good conversations. So we have a whole lot to offer you as an audience.
Hopefully.
Yeah, got some good topics on coming down the pike today. So real quick before we get started, if you guys like what I do and you like Jared and myself, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if it's something you want to get updates on, and comment, share, subscribe. I know we're sick of hearing about that from every single creator, but it is extraordinarily necessary for us to survive and grow, and it's very much appreciated. So business over. What's up, man?
Good to see you, man. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just surviving this craziness, you know?
It's all we can do.
Craziness. So you were just talking about something right before we went on the air. Like you saw the trailer reaction for the Batman video.
I did.
What are your thoughts on the trailer?
I have loved Batman since I was a very little boy, so I have a love affair with Batman. I am predisposed to like anything Batman related. I loved Lego Batman. Is how much I love Batman.
Oh, really? Was that good? I never watched that.
It's okay. I mean, it's no like Lego movie, but it's fun enough, especially if you do love Batman. I love the games.
Okay.
I love the
really
T-shirts.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
So to see a new take on Batman is always exciting, and I was thrilled. I love Matt Reeves. I actually liked his Planet of the. I liked his Planet of the Apes movies. And I'm not a prequel person for the most part. I think prequels are almost always a bad idea.
Agreed.
But I think he nailed it with the Planet of the Apes prequel trilogy somehow.
Okay.
And he has won my allegiance for quite some time, at least with that. And from what I can tell, this is he's only shot 25%, 30% of the movie, from what I understand.
Wow, really?
If this is a trailer from that 25 to 30% shot, we are in for a treat.
Wow.
You know, I know everybody's talking about like, oh, Matt Dano's going to be the next Heath Ledger with the Joker, and I don't know that I go that far. We heard 2 lines of dialogue from him.
Is that the guy with the shit all over his face?
He's got the shit all over his face.
Yeah.
He's playing the Riddler, Paul Dano. People know him from.
Oh, it's Paul Dano. Oh,
that's right.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you know Paul Dano.
Of course. Yeah, he played that very confusing twins role on There Will Be Blood.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Either twin? It was
confusing, right?
So confusing.
It took me like 2 watches to fully understand who was who. I'm glad you're not.
Yeah, it didn't pay off. It was, and I heard it was like something that they wedged in there at the end because like the other, they're like, oh, we'll just make them twins, but they never explained it. So you're just like, wait,
this makes me feel so much less dumb. I appreciate it.
I think that's the thing with that movie is everyone says they like it because they don't want to look dumb, but I don't really think it's that fucking good.
It's great performances.
Great performances.
And I'll tell you, the first 10 minutes of that movie, how often do you see silent, performances carrying the weight of a movie the way that you see the first 10 minutes of that movie, or however long it is?
But I don't, whenever someone points that out to me, like, oh, that tracking shot was so good, it's like, if you need to point it out, like, it's not that fucking good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yes, like, as a spectacle, it's fascinating, right? Like, okay,
sure.
10 minutes of silence performance, or, yeah, we did, like, the whole movie looks like one tracking shot. It's like, fine, but that's kind of a gimmick. Like, it's.
So
like,
I take it you didn't like 1917 as much as I did?
Actually didn't even see it.
Okay.
So,
it's well done.
That.
You and I, we'd be able to go to that movie, and a lot of your savvy viewers, I'm sure, would be allowed to go to that movie and see that there are like maybe 10 to 15 cuts in that movie where you go, I see where you made that secret cut. But there are about 50 cuts in that movie.
Really?
And that's what surprised me, is that it appears to be all one shot. For anybody who doesn't know, 1917 is cut in a way that it looks like from beginning to end, one shot completely. And I think people who are really film savvy will see 5 to 15 shots where they go, that's where you cut 100%. And then you look it up later and you find there were about 50 cuts in that movie, and you can't believe it. That's the impressiveness of, to me, is the extra 35 cuts. Not the fact that it looks one cut, but that extra 35 cuts.
You can't even notice them.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Have you ever seen that show?
No.
It doesn't strike me as a show you'd necessarily watch. But the one shots.
I've heard it's good. I've heard it's just I'm like skeptical of anything new,
Fair enough.
especially when there's like a real like smug female lead. I'm like, I
Yes.
don't know. I just
You know what's interesting about her as a female lead, though, is that she's extremely flawed and extremely selfish. And the entire show is about like, hey, look at this woman going for it in the 1950s. And by going for it, we mean abandoning her family and losing her husband and really making everyone see how much of a selfish so-and-so this woman is. And not in a way of like, oh, you'd be considered selfish if you did this in the 1950s, but like you had to really be selfish to do this in the 1950s. You had to abandon your children to your, their grandparents and the whole nine. But my point is,
okay. That's fair. I could see. Yeah. Okay. I've heard good things. It deserves a little bit more of my time, but
it's clever.
anyway.
It's worth a watch. But it's shot with so many oneers, it would make Spielberg cry. And I consider him the king of like the low key one shots, where he has those like minute and a half of one shots where they're not like flashy. They don't announce themselves like Children of Men style.
Too. Yeah,
Scorsese's
really
great.
well.
He announces himself a little bit more. I feel like Maisel, you don't notice you're in a one shot almost, like 90% of the time, you don't notice the shot's been going on for 2 minutes. And it's
That's
a
impressive
in TV like cinematography. I had a point beyond that, but
regardless,
I remember it.
That's an interesting thing right there. I've not heard any such high praise for this show as you just gave it. I like my mom likes it, and I've heard I've heard good things. It's like awards, but like I can't trust awards anymore. That is the most like compelling reason for me to check it out. That anyone's
the show was so good that I checked out the same showrunner as Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
And I watched
That's a surprisingly good show.
Well, I watched the first 2 episodes of it. It was so good it made me watch Gilmore Girls. No, it's definitely not. The writing's very, very good. It shows that it was on network TV in the 90s to early 2000s.
Totally. But it's not, at least it's not as bad as you would expect.
And I think that'll be your experience with Mrs. Maisel.
Okay.
Do you like Lenny Bruce at all? Do you throw any praise Lenny Bruce's way?
I mean, I don't know his comedy. I know what he did. I know like he's important for stand-up, but other than that, I don't really know his jokes.
He's, a semi-regular on the show. Obviously not the real Lenny Bruce, an actor portraying Lenny Bruce.
For 1 second, I was like, wait, what? Am I thinking of a different Lenny Bruce?
But they nail his routines. I mean, I'm somebody who looked into Lenny Bruce a little bit, and they nail his routines like beat for beat. The guy who does somebody Kirby. I wish I knew his name. It feels like a Jack Kirby. It's probably not his name. Luke Kirby. I don't know. But Lenny, they do a great job. I'd recommend the show. If you're interested, I'm looking in the cinematography alone is worth watching.
I'm looking up the actor who plays. Yes, Luke Farrell Kirby. Oh, I recognize him.
I was so close.
You were. Yeah, I recognize him. I don't know what I recognize him from.
I didn't know him from anything else. He does a great Lenny Bruce. But he plays a nice supporting character in the show. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but Mrs. Maisel is based almost entirely on Joan Rivers.
That's pretty fucking cool because I love Joan Rivers.
I do too, and she has that same sort of spunk.
She was a funny bitch,
especially for the time.
Oh my god! And I mean, she was brutal. She was a real comic, man. She was
I know.
Funny. Yeah.
If you ever watch her routines from the early '60s, now you just from whatever your conceived notions of the '60s are, you just cannot believe she was saying that stuff on television in front of a camera.
Suicide jokes, like, you know what I mean? Like all types of stuff that was just so taboo. Sex jokes, brutal things that you're just not, even now, especially now, people would get all like uncomfortable with. She was doing it
even just getting into the fact that like, women were expected to be married by 30 by then. You're 26 and you're not married. She was breaking those transgressions in a way that, I think anybody would be proud of watching in 2020.
She's bad, dude. Yeah, it's funny. I actually worked at her house one time, it was her daughter's house, I think. But it was just for like Thanksgiving. Like I was just as a server, and worked her house, dude, and had like all of like Joan Rivers Emmys from like the '70s and shit, like in this one room, and I was like, holy shit, like wow. That's like Hollywood history, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I was like blown away. It's funny.
Joan Rivers, you like the show.
Yeah,
I don't mean to sidetrack you.
No, dude, like that is such a great recommendation. Like no one really has made the effort to like push that show for me. I haven't heard. It's funny because I keep seeing advertised, and I'm always like, oh, that's that show I'll probably hate.
If I can be candid, the thing that I'm surprised about in that show is the fact that there is very little emphasis on what people would refer to as the misgivings of the time period. So in things like,
Ah, I know what you mean.
you know what I mean.
I do.
Even in terms of like segregation, which is like a thing that was going on right before the show was really taking place,
Yeah.
and ongoing a little bit through the show. She's in the entertainment industry, which has had black performers and everything since before integration was even a thing. So it's not as relevant to the characters in the story then. So it feels modern. They use modern slang as well. That was a decision that the showrunner made, was to use modern slang instead of the 50s and 60s slang to make it authentic. They wanted to make it more, I guess, approachable to people like us.
Dude, that's pretty interesting because, like, I think the marketing is trying to make it seem like it has all these kind of like contemporary, like woman first kinds of messages and stuff. Like every time I see a joke, the punchline is always like some girl related something something, and I'm just like, all right.
I mean, there's a little of that. It's obviously a female perspective. You're coming in with a female comic, and it's a female in the 60s, But I would say for what you would assume it was versus what it is, it'll surprise you in a very, very charitable way. It's a very 21st century show, but without trying to pretend like, hey, we knew everything in the 60s, and here's that woman who's pointing it out to you and you're just not listening or whatever. It's good.
That's good. It's not preachy.
And it's in an industry that was already like, I mean, we love performers of all races. Like they're obviously making us money, which is an important thing in the late 50s and early 60s. But I mean, for people who don't know, obviously the first things to get integrated were entertainment, right? People were okay with seeing, even in a segregated America, people were cool with seeing black people in their media, black singers, the whole nine. So she's entering into a world where she can, not to give spoilers away, but I'm sure nobody cares, for her Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She can open for black performers. She can go on tour with a black performer. She can be in the same, eat at the same restaurant, and people don't care. It's not an issue in entertainment, so it's not really that much of an issue in the show, which is something some people take issue with. But it's really kind of nice to see that, like, there were those fears even in the late 50s and early 60s. There were those fears that were not quite as angry and prejudiced as you would think of them to be in the late 50s and early 60s.
I think that, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is that the show deals with the time, but that's not the like point of the show. It sounds like, and that's really refreshing because I watched. Did you see the Umbrella Academy at all?
I didn't. I have seen Doom Patrol, which to me is almost the same thing as the Umbrella Academy, from how I imagine it to be.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I did watch the Umbrella Academy, and I covered it. I covered every episode of the second season, and that was something that just was such a consistent thing, that the storylines that were politically motivated were such a drag, and they were so ham-handed and so preachy, and they just ground the entire show to a halt to the point where you're just like, oh my god, like this is unwatchable. Like you on one hand you have this brilliant superhero, like, like fun, like creative characters. On the other hand, you just have like some 24-year-old girl's idea of like what political messages should be. You know what I mean? Just like ham-fisted, shoved in there.
The show take place in the past?
Yeah, it does take place in the 60s, so it's like it's relevant, but it's not relevant in the sense that you could feel it's shoehorned in there to be relevant. Like all of a sudden one of the characters is a lesbian, wasn't a lesbian last season, and then it's Ellen Page, and then there's Allison is like married to this guy who's a civil rights like activist or whatever, which all those things are fine, but it goes nowhere. And it's
Right.
so, you know what I mean, throughout the whole show, you get this sense it's like it stands apart from this whole show. It just feels like someone else came in, threw it in there, and the writers were like, all right, I guess we'll try to force it in here. Where does it go? Okay, you know,
Now,
like it.
are you tracking this from the comics at all? Are you able to speak from the transition that it was
No.
added, or okay?
No, I can't. However, I do follow Gary, this guy Gary at Nerdrotic, who's got a big channel on YouTube, and he is a big fan of the comics, and he is. You could almost, you know, he could see just how not crushed, but just how much he's just like, yeah, this is just.
So he feels that there have been talking points added to the show.
That's very delicately put. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's funny. I was this whole little tangent we got was started with the Batman trailer.
Right.
So.
Okay. So the Batman trailer. I forgot about that. So I'll tell you one thing that I like about it is that it is early enough Batman to be an unformed Batman, but not an origin story.
Is it
right?
Is it period? Is that a period piece? Is it supposed to be like the 30s or something?
It doesn't strike me as such. I mean, I know that the original Batman, his parents would have been dying in the 30s, right? But I don't see anything in the trailer that
No, and that
suggests
Batmobile is too modern for it to be.
Yeah. I would assume that whatever Batman we're seeing is supposed to be now.
Okay.
So, where I know a lot of us were skeptical probably about the Robert Pattinson Batman. Were you skeptical about that at all?
Why wouldn't I be? I mean, you know what? I haven't seen that movie. What's it? Good Times, like the soft.
Right. Yeah, he was in
movie.
Good Time.
So
he was in a couple of other serious performances as well, where he was trying to establish himself as not Edward from Twilight.
Right. And apparently he hates those movies. Like I talked to my friend who used to be. She was my friend Lindsay, who I do a show with here. She was a kid. Like she was like 14 when the Twilight was big. So she was into that shit. And so not that she's followed it, but she's kind of stuck around it. And she said that he hates the movies. He loathes them and just hates that he did it. Kristen Stewart too, apparently.
From what I've seen in interviews with him, that would be correct. I mean, I don't know more than your friend Lindsay would know, I would assume. But from what I've seen in interviews, he seems to have a disdain for them. But he's a great actor, from what I can tell. He's a fine actor. You know, he was kind of put in these movies that were for teenage girls, which is not a bad thing. We're obviously not teenage girls, you and I.
No,
we're not the target audience of Twilight. No. We're not going to necessarily like Twilight in the same way.
And if I were him, I would have taken the role. Of course, I would have taken the role.
Yeah, you would have.
In a heartbeat.
And I can't blame him for that. I don't blame the Twilight movies for existing, or the Twilight.
A little bit.
I mean, they're just for a target audience that is very different than you.
They're terrible movies. They're terrible. Target audience or not.
I'll tell you this. Okay, so I haven't seen
Twilight. All right.
I haven't seen the Twilight movies. I've seen the last half of the first one, and the first half of the second one. But I will tell you that when I was 15, I was on a cruise with my parents. I went back to the cabin where we were staying to take a nap. I fell asleep. I woke up, and my dad is there. Maybe 2 hours after I fell asleep, he's on the edge of his bed, staring at the TV, wide-eyed and excited, looking at what I could only discern to be some sort of, at that time you would think it to be like some sort of either really reaching commercial, like trying to portray the youth at the time, or some sort of movie on like Hallmark or something like that. Anyway, he was watching it and he was enthralled, and I was saying, like, what are you watching? What are you so excited about? And he said, I don't know, man. I missed the opening credits of the movie. I came in like 15 minutes too late, but I thought there was going to be some sort of like dumb, like, oh, it's an abusive relationship, like Hallmark movie between two people. And it turns out the dude's a fucking vampire, man. Like, can you believe it? The dude's a vampire, right? So he's got like this whole family of vampires, and this girl, she's trying to navigate that. She's in love with them. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, what's she gonna do, right? And I'm like, Dad, is this movie by any chance Twilight? And he goes, yeah, I think that's what it's called. I think I saw That's what it's called. And he was into it. He hadn't he had never heard a stitch about Twilight, and he was into it.
At some point in a young man's life, eventually you do realize that your father is he's not God. He is human. He has flaws, and
I suppose that's true.
Yeah, it's a tough thing for a kid to see.
I was making a different
his
point.
Power.
But you're not wrong. I think I think there are people those movies are for. They're not you and me, and I think that's okay.
I mean, you know what? I think that's actually okay, and it's unfortunate.
But I haven't seen them. Maybe they're awful. I don't know. I know people.
I think it's just what it is now. Is that I think entertainment has become homogenized. It's like every single piece of entertainment has to have like a similar form. It has to be representative in the way that certain people want it to be, but it has to be universal. Like it has to be like across the board. And I think entertainment is segmented. There are just certain things for certain people, and that's just how it is. Like, and we don't I don't think we should be forced to create every single thing. It's just some sort of uniform standards. It just has to fit in these boxes. It's it's like you talk shit about movies like that, but it's thank God they existed, because that was a time when movies you could just have like a separate audience. We didn't all have
it's for the same reason that movies geared towards us exist. There wouldn't be
exactly.
I don't know, Star Trek movies if we were only gearing towards 14-year-old girls. They get their own movies with Twilight.
But that's the thing now is like every single movie now is like considering all audiences. It's like it's trying to be all these things to all people, and it's like it doesn't have to be niche content, especially nowadays. Geez, niche content's as potent and distinct as it's ever been.
Well, you see it getting anything that comes out that is actually decent, that is also niche, tends to get some waves going, because I think there are people like you and I who are hungry for niche content.
Dude, Joker made $1 billion.
Sure. I don't know that I would call that niche content, though, would you?
I would call it like atypical from what's put out. Like
it's an R-rated superhero movie. That's atypical.
Yeah,
for sure.
But it was grounded. Like if it wasn't called the Joker, if it was called Larry the Unhappy Guy, you know what I mean, or whatever, like it would still work. It like the fact that it's Joker is interesting, but it's not
Larry the Unhappy.
It's a building of a supervillain, but it's like it was a movie that cared about its characters, it cared about its script, it cared about its logical progression, and it cared about its cinematography and its world building, and it cared about
did.
And it didn't give a shit about any kind of agenda. And that that's what makes it atypical and so strong. And you could see people dying for something like that.
I think it had an agenda. It just had an agenda I agreed with.
What, make a good movie and don't preach to your
No,
audience?
I mean its agenda was obviously the media gets away from us. I think.
I don't know if that's an agenda. It's a theme, maybe.
I think the fact that there was such a differentiation between what the Joker stood for publicly and what he stood for personally, that it was the core of that movie. The agenda seemed to be you're not getting a representation of the reality behind the screens of your computer or your TV or your phone or whatever.
But I mean that's an educated, like, thoughtful, pensive conclusion to draw. It's not overt. It doesn't come out and say that. It's not like you need to think about you know what I mean? Like a more overt version, not that it was inept, but a more overt execution of that would be in The Incredibles 2 with the screenslaver goggles. Same idea.
A little more overt.
But that's a little more overt. But even that is still kind of a theme. It's not like I mean agenda when it's just like you got basically like one character like talking to the audience.
Right.
And it's like shut the fuck up. Like
I could be really either pessimistic about the Joker or optimistic about the Joker. I prefer to be optimistic about the Joker.
What? Okay. Go down this road.
I personally love the Joker watching it as a human being. Just watching it.
But as a comic book fan,
No, not even as a comic book fan.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think it did have a socio-political message. I don't think we can pretend that it didn't necessarily.
I'm
I
not
think
trying
that
to pretend. I'm just saying I think it works without it. Like it's like something that exists on multiple levels. It's
Mhm.
not a vehicle for that message. It happens to be occur.
I think it just had a counterintuitive socio-political message where it was, there is a nuance to reality that you can't necessarily understand through sound bites. You know,
It's fine
and
with me.
right, it's a socio-political message that I tend to agree with, and it's a shame that our movie had to be the Joker. You want that sort of message to be delivered in something with a protagonist more mainstream, perhaps.
$1 billion is pretty mainstream.
I guess that's true. Everybody's seen the Joker, right? There's probably nobody watching who hasn't seen.
I mean, I don't know. Like, who knows? But I mean, that's a pretty big audience, for a movie of that for $50 million. It's just, I don't know. It proves that you don't have to sink $300 million to make a billion. That
I'll
you
take
can,
I'll take a cool billion on my movie. I'll tell you that.
yeah.
If I can get a cool billion
And I
on
think
our little dog and pony show.
the success of this film, of that film, is what inspired. Like I think DC, like Warner Brothers took very close note of that success, and I think they're applying similar, you know, what's the word, like values, virtues into this new Batman movie. I think this new Batman movie is going to be in the same vein. It's going to be grounded. It's going to be harsh, and because I could see, my impression was seeing like him with all the cops, like inside the police department. It felt to me like he is more like a contractor. You know what I mean? Like he's working with them, not like opposite. Like he's just this floaty guy. It's like he is a crime fighter.
Sure.
That
Yeah,
was my impression.
I think it seems as though it's year one where they don't know what he is or what he isn't. He seems to be turning over bad guys,
Fair.
which is a good thing. But I'm excited about any established Batman who still has mystery in the Batman universe. That's interesting to me. I think I don't want to see another origin story. We all know about the parents who are being killed
enough
during the
origin
opera
stories. I don't
or
even
the
care.
movie.
Just
I
get in the
know.
middle of it.
Exactly.
Just right in the middle. I don't care. Enough origin.
Exactly. I think we all know how he became Batman. But what is interesting
who
to
even
me,
fucking, anyway, sorry.
well, it's just like after he's established, how do the citizens of Gotham see him? How does the police department see him? So I think it's interesting that it seems to be like, okay, yeah, you're working with us. I see you turning over people we were also interested in, but like you're still kind of like a ridiculous dude in a
Right.
bat costume beating up bad dudes. We're going to let that go for the minute.
If
But
you could, so now I was thinking about this because I'm not a huge Batman fan like you are. Like I appreciate
No.
the movies. I like them. I don't like love them. I've never read a Batman comic book as much as I can remember. Maybe when I was a kid. But nothing like that. And I don't obsess over them. I enjoy them when they come out. But I would think if it were me, like if I was gonna make a Batman movie, like what I would want to do would be, and this is like blasphemy to Batman fans, but I would
we'll
want
find
to,
out.
I would want to make his armor, like his suit, as practical as possible. Like I would be
Right.
no cape, no horns, no rubber bullshit. Like it would just be like great, like really tactically advanced body armor, right? Like that's what I would do.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like Darren Aronofsky. I don't know if you know this. He wanted to do a Batman movie
No.
before he did either The Fountain or whatever he did after The Fountain. He
Okay.
wanted to do a Batman movie where Al was Big Al. He was actually a mechanic. And that's where Bruce Wayne got his work done. And he was able to make the Batmobile through the help of Big Al, who was Alfred, but a mechanic. And
That's
it was all
interesting.
done very, very practically. I have the script if you'd like me to send it to you.
Really? Is it good?
It is okay. It's exactly what you think of when you think of a realistic Batman movie where you go like, yeah, no, I want a realistic Batman movie, and then you get like 45 minutes into it and you're like, I want a little bit of fantasy though, actually, Batman movie.
That's
Because
like when you get those, like, you play like a video game where you're like, wouldn't it be so cool if you could go into like any store and do anything, and then you do it and you're like, oh yeah, okay, actually I kind of want a mission. That's
right,
sort of
exactly.
why. Yeah.
That's exactly it. It feels a little too much grounded.
I know
Where
that's so funny when you have these ideas in your head. Like, wouldn't it be great if like a girl just asked you out and then you do it and you're
right,
like, oh no, I kind of like it when I chase you. I don't like when this just happens like
exactly,
that.
exactly right. Where yeah, it seems a little bit too like I don't know. To somebody like me who's read so much of the Batman mythos, it feels a little too much about sliding reality into the Batman mythos.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, and
Whereas
that's yeah.
this movie with Matt Reeves feels like we're sliding Batman into reality rather than sliding reality into the Batman mythos, which
You know
is
what?
where
That's
I would get with
probably
Darren Aronofsky and would be fine. I would watch the shit out of that movie. I even like Noah. I like Darren Aronofsky so much I like Noah.
Oh, you told me that. We had that conversation once. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're the only
Have you
person
seen
I
it?
know who's ever even seen it now. No,
Okay.
I haven't.
I saw that movie 3 times in theaters. And I own it.
Wow.
I own it on Amazon, whatever you own on Amazon.
Yeah, I have movies on Amazon too. Yeah, I've
Where you
actually
think you
started
own it,
buying.
but it's like whatever Amazon decides you own, you own.
Yeah, until our Amazon overlords decide otherwise.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to make a hard turn here. Not that hard of a turn. Actually, I'm gonna refill my drink. So if you want to entertain the people for a little bit, you can, or we could just have a minute of silence. Whatever.
Okay. Well, it is good to
Wait,
see you,
why don't you
people of Gotham,
tell the people about your movie?
about my movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, assuming this isn't the reason Matt had me on, I did make a movie recently. It is almost done post-production. It is a thriller horror drama about 2 people who went out to the mountains for their first romantic getaway. And during that getaway, they get a little drinky, a little stony. And it turns out the guy slips out into this god persona who claims that he is God speaking through the boyfriend. And that if the girlfriend does not believe him and follow his instructions, she is condemned to not only die, but go to hell for eternity. So the movie plays out in a romantic horror thriller fashion of trying to convince her, yet also preserve their relationship. And the guy doesn't understand what's going on. He's like, hey, who's this guy talking to you? But does he understand what's going on? Does he? That's the movie. Okay.
What a phenomenal pitch that was. And when do you
Assuming
think
Matt
that'll be?
heard.
I heard it all. So when can the people see such said film?
Well, it looks like we have a little distribution deal brewing. So we'll find out. It looks like 2021. Hopefully the year without COVID.
Hopefully to that.
But
Okay.
I would presume for all you good people watching at home, we are talking about VOD and
Right.
not trekking out to the theaters with your
So
masks on.
This film is what was the title of the film? Because I don't think you mentioned
The
that.
Great and Terrible Day of the Lord.
And is there anywhere they can follow the progress of this, like Instagram or something like that?
Well, check us out on IMDb. We have a Twitter. I'm sure we have an Instagram. I'm sure the good folks working on social media for us have an Instagram.
Keep an eye out for that film.
Facebook.
Facebook, yeah, any of the social media. Keep an eye out for the film because it looks like it's gonna be really good. I was on the set and it was something else to behold. It's a hell of an endeavor, and everyone involved really gave a shit about making that a great movie. And I mean that with no hyperbole and no like showbiz talk. Like, hey, it's a great experience. So everyone just working so hard. None of that shit. Like, authentically, that was something I really got out of everyone on the set. I was really blown away by that.
We did really care. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, it was evident. It was really evident.
And Matt, at some point off air, I'd love to invite you to a screening.
That would
We're
be
hoping
great.
to have one soon.
I will
We have
be
the
there.
score done.
That's great. I will be there with bells on, my friend. Be there with bells on. Okay, so the topic I wanted to bring up, and this was the first thing I thought about because I have not been able to have like a really like complex discussion with about this particular film, and I think you're the guy to do it.
Oh yeah, it's okay.
What did you think about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
The way you're saying that makes me feel like I shouldn't have liked it.
No, I need thoughts. I need understanding. I don't. Okay, I'll tell you what I thought, so I can kind of lead you in. Okay, I didn't fucking get it. Like, I ended up watching it, I think, in two parts because it was like getting late, and I just had to turn it off and watch it again. Which
Sure.
happens. It happens. And I thought it was magnificent. Like, I loved everything about it. I loved the old Hollywood. I loved Rick Dalton's, like, I loved how he's like, when he's on set, he has that bad performance and then like goes to the trailer and beats the shit out of the fucking trailer and then has the
That
good
was definitely the
performance.
best part of the movie. That little girl who
Yeah.
knew way too much about her character, who was able
That
to
was
kind of
weird.
lead
Yeah.
Leo in the right direction.
And then there was all these interesting things, and then it just has like a complete break, and there's just 10 minutes of like cartoony violence, and then the movie's over, and I was like, what the
Right.
fuck did I didn't get it, and I like the Hateful Eight shirt you're wearing, like that was a movie where it was like
Thank you for noticing.
I did, and it was a movie. It took me a minute to get into. Like, I think I tried it once or twice, and then I ended up watching the 4-hour extended Netflix like miniseries version, and I fucking loved it. Like, I thought it was awesome. Like, I fell into the world, and like, but it was like I was like double dutch. I had to like jump in at the right time, But with
Sure.
once upon a time in Hollywood, I was like geared up, ready to go. This is gonna be great. And I was like, oh, this is great. And I watched half of it. I think I went to work the next day, and I was like, I started watching it last night, guys. It was so good. And I'm like sitting there, and I'm just like, what? What the fuck just happened? What was that? What was this movie about?
It's the two halves of Tarantino's career, right? So you have his first half, which is the talky, reflective, everything behind the scenes half, which can be behind the scenes of the mafia or the Yakuza or whatever it is Tarantino decides he wants to have dialogue about, versus the violent half of Tarantino's career. And I feel like you have that movie split into thirds, with the 2/3 being sort of like almost a Dazed and Confused style waltz through 1960s Hollywood, right? Where, yes, there was a little bit of light Charlie Manson influence. I know he knew the Beach Boys, and they lived next to, or they were involved with Richard Spector and the whole nine. And who did they get into with the murders? Polanski. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Which I thought was weird too. I was like, this isn't the era of Me Too and Time's Up, and this movie's kind of fucking worshiping Polanski's dick. Which I was like, that's a weird choice at this time in history.
I think they kind of go like, hey, if Polanski wasn't home and we were home, the heroes who know what we knew in the 21st century, we would have killed the shit out of this dude.
And he wouldn't have fucked a 13-year-old girl, I guess, is what they're trying to...
Polanski wouldn't have fucked a 13-year-old girl.
Okay.
Yes, I guess. Not to mention whose estate is that. Whose estate we won't mention, I would assume, because Jack Nicholson's estate is probably still active on YouTube, and so we won't mention Jack Nicholson or the fact that he was at his mansion during the time of the supposed rapes. I can see by your face this is like an edit out kind of thing. I
don't care. I don't give a shit.
Kind of thing.
I mean, no, I don't care. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm not that at all. But I've never heard that before. That's fucked up.
He was either at Nicholson's estate, or Nicholson was like a co-financier, party host of the party, by which we know Polanski as a rapist in terms of him drugging and sleeping with that like 13 or 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
He was heavily involved with that, Matthew, if you don't know. I feel bad for being the one telling
Yeah,
you.
well, I mean, whatever. I feel bad for the for the victim of rape, but
Yes.
that
One Flew
uh,
Over the Cuckoo's Nest, very good. Rape, very bad. We can all agree.
dude, Nicholson's one of my favorite actors. I have a book over there just like all about his stuff, like Five Easy Pieces, The Last Detail, fucking Cuckoo's Nest, all that shit. He is
Yeah.
ex- stupendous in the 70s, like best
Yes. You
ever.
just have to filter that through like totally
Separate.
cool with a lot of rape. Or like rape in a bunch. I don't know which it was for Nicholson
Oh
personally.
man,
It was one or the other.
I'm gonna have to look into that. That is a
I don't know.
bummer.
So in Inglorious Bastards, he kills Hitler, right?
Right.
So we can kind of understand he's doing these proto-hypotic or historical views where we're not doing actual histories here. We're not doing
Three
historical
times we got to
fiction.
do it. We got to do it 3 times. It's still interesting every time.
It's not necessarily as interesting every time. I think Inglorious Bastards got everybody. I think Django Unchained got everybody going like, okay, I see it. That's fun.
Okay.
And then I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, people were like, Brad Pitt doesn't have his shirt on. We do like that.
He was cool as ice too, by the way. I mean, that was a
It's a
great
cool
performance.
character.
It was a cool character, cool performance. Him kicking Bruce Lee's ass, I really liked. Controversy or not, I thought that was awesome.
And that's classic Tarantino, is that you have a cool
Yeah.
character. You have a character who's cooler than the protagonist and cooler than the viewer wishes they were.
Yeah,
Right?
it was
We
so
all wish
cool.
we were as cool as Brad Pitt.
Do you
We all
think-
wish we were as cool as half the people in Tarantino movies.
Do you think the character killed his wife? Because that was brought up.
That seems to be the implication, yeah, is that he got
Right?
away with killing his wife.
So what the
I mean,
fuck
but
is
hey,
going on? Like, what is this?
Christopher
movie?
Walken got away with being party to killing Natalie Woods. So we're all
What?
good here.
How do you?
He
What
was
is
on
it? Why are you?
He was
rooting-
on the boat. Christopher Walken was on the boat with Natalie Woods when she
Was
drowned.
she murdered?
She was like maybe murdered. How'd she get over the edge? Why is she on a cruise ship? Why is she on a yacht?
Was she with Walken, or was
She
Walken
was
just happened to
walking
be there?
when she drowned.
Like she was
She
dating
happened to
him?
be- No, she was dating somebody whose name everybody knows except for me, currently talking about who she's dating.
Okay.
So it seems like a popular thing in the time when Tarantino was writing about that people might get away with murdering their wives, and maybe we don't care as much if there are people like Brad Pitt is the point. But I also think there's some sort of like,
Is that the point? Is that why that was in there?
well, I think that's part of the point, yeah, is that like you could kind of get away with that kind of stuff and you would still be respected in the industry. And
But he's
Understood.
a stuntman. He's not he's not Christopher Walken, and he clearly wasn't respected in the industry because like he had to like talk his way on the set. Really,
that's true. I think there was a little bit of that in terms of like you could get away with it. People weren't looking as hard. You know, if a man says, "Oh, my wife drowned" or whatever, I forget what happens to Leo's wife now. I think it was similar to the Natalie Wood thing, which is why it brings to mind. It was on a boat of some sort.
he was
right?
on a boat. Yeah, it was on a boat.
Yeah.
man.
But
Well,
I
okay.
think the
So
big
let me-
deal was that they were killing the Manson family.
Right. So
Is
it was more revenge porn.
Exactly. It was that Inglorious Bastards. We killed Hitler. We like.
Is
What
that
if?
his new thing now? It's like, what? Why? Like that's not what I associate Tarantino with. Like,
It seems to be a little what he's going for in terms of like, hey, what if my cool characters were home during this awful tragedy? You know,
Who
when
is
Mark
that
Wahlberg
good
was
for?
like, I would have stopped 9/11.
yeah, that's exactly right. It's that kind of like, if I was home, what would you have
Right.
done? Shut up. You'd have been a
It
sixth victim.
strikes me a little as that, which is I don't know. I think it's fine. I think there's a
Fine.
room.
Does it need to
Or
be like?
I'm wearing the Hateful Eight shirt. Hateful Eight is not my favorite Tarantino movie. I do like it.
I like.
I like it more as a miniseries than I like it as a film, but I like it
What
as a
it-
film.
I thought it worked really well as a miniseries. What is your favorite Tarantino movie?
Oh, jeez, that's hard.
Really?
It's hard not to say Pulp Fiction. It's hard not to say Kill Bill Volume 1. I'm going to say Kill Bill Volume 2.
Wow. I'll you know what? I'll give you that. It's not my. I don't love Kill Bill, but the older I get, the more I appreciate it, the more I enjoy it. Like if it's on, I'm definitely not turning it off.
Right?
I don't know if I'll put it on like for another few years, but especially Volume 2 because how patient it is and how Tarantino it is. Um, I gotta say Pulp Fiction though. I mean, I can't. There's no way because it's like I've
Pulp
seen
Fiction
it.
feels so obvious, but it obviously is very,
I,
very good.
I've caught shit for that before. People are like, "What's your favorite movie?" I'm like Pulp Fiction. They're like, "Oh, it's such an obvious answer." I'm like, I don't care. There's a reason it's an obvious answer. It's a great movie. Like it's perfect. Like
True.
I have no complaints about it. I could watch it right now and be enthralled. Like it doesn't. I love the
I could
dialogue.
too.
I love the acting. I like. It's not
And
long
it's
enough
the
for me. Like
cinematography in it is great.
yeah.
One of the things that I've thought of throughout my brief career shooting movies is Tarantino's work during Pulp Fiction. In terms of you use the camera to tell you what's going on in the protagonist's head. There's a long shot down a hallway.
That's interesting. I've never really looked at it from that point of view.
There's the long shot down a hallway where Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson are about to go into an apartment building, and they're having an idle conversation that sounds like any Tarantino dialogue. And while they're having this
you don't have to be
conversation,
vague. Like I already know exactly what scene you're talking about.
they
This is
walk away from the hallway, right?
the foot massage conversation.
It's about the foot massage, yes. And they walk away from the door in which they're about to break down.
And it's almost like they stop and the camera keeps going and then stops and like watches them.
So I guess the way that I'm thinking about it is that they walk like 15 feet away from the camera. The camera doesn't move. Foreground of the camera is the apartment building we're about to see them in, where we know that they have business.
Oh, they're
And
not
gonna
there
come-
yet.
They're not
You're
there.
saying-
Yet. They're
okay, I'm
stopping
thinking of a different shot.
outside of the apartment. They're going and having this conversation and walk a little further down. But Tarantino chooses not to follow them with the camera. He chooses to allow them to walk almost out of frame, further away as the object in the camera. And that's interesting to me because what it does to the viewer is it reminds them, hey, our mission here is whatever's in this door. This door is not going out of view. The whole time we're watching them talk, we're enjoying it. It's great dialogue, but it's like, hey guys, you are distracting yourselves, you're distracting us from whatever's in this door. And they are small in the frame. And that's one of those things that I think about constantly in terms of the dialogue is great, but visually Tarantino is saying they should not be having this dialogue. You know, you think about that when you watch Tarantino, is just like, they humanize the evil guys a lot with all these like standard conversations that you and I would have or whatever.
Right.
A Royale with cheese or whatever. But then in this moment, when they're walking away from the door to have this conversation, it's almost like the camera is telling them, don't do this. You guys have more important stuff to do.
You say that like it's totally like it's almost like all the characters are unreliable narrators. Like none of them are like really on top of this shit the way they think they are. Like none of them. Like not a single one of them. Like some come out in stressful situations and some don't, but they're not really like, you know, like even Marcellus Wallace, like he gets fucked literally, you know what I mean? Thinking he's got the handle in the situation. Butch, you know what I mean? He like there's so many people that it's like, and then there's another thing, like you're saying that like the way the camera like stops at the apartment, there really is to me in that movie, like even though it's talked about, there really is like the hand of God like moving through that story. And it really does judge people. Like people who are righteous do get spared, and people who are like see the change, see the option and choose the bad one, they get judged. It's really like profound in that regard. And like in fact, the older I get, the more times I've watched it, the more I see that in there. I see that kind of soul, like this sort of like a righteousness to it that like I think you're describing. Like it's like it's like the narrator is benevolent. Not the narrator, whatever, whomever, like
omniscient.
Yes, but like in a good, but also like benevolent. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty remarkable. And like Tarantino has said that like the 666 on the briefcase like meant nothing, and then the thing like the band-aid on Marcellus Wallace's neck was, oh, he just happened to have a band-aid that day. And I was like, fuck you. No, he
Right.
didn't. You did not put the camera right on it, and he just
had
happened to
something in
have it.
mind.
Like the most meticulous filmmaker, really. I was just like, oh, I don't know. We'll just throw it together. Really? Yeah. Shut up. He's throwing us off the case. And I think there is something. I think there's like a righteousness to it. And like he seems like, honestly, like I don't know much about his personal life, but he does seem like overall like a good guy. Like, you know, he gives away information freely. Like he gives away wisdom and insight. If you ever watch an interview with him, like he is extraordinarily generous with the information that he gives like young filmmakers and stuff like that. Like it's, you know, a lot of guys play it real close to the chest, and they kind of got they already won, so they're not going to help you win. It was really hard for me to get here, kid. So, you know, I'm not going
Right.
to, but he is an open book. He shares it all. Like he shares like the biggest insights of his career. He just gives it away for free. It's like, he seems like a good guy. So the idea that he would have like that kind of like a God, like right, like level of righteousness, I buy it. You know, it makes sense. And that's why it's so much fucking harder to watch these movies that are just like, yeah, they're exceptionally well made and they're interesting, you know, ideas. If like me and you are like sitting around shooting the shit, dude, wouldn't it be cool if we made a movie, went back and killed Hitler? That'd be fucking hilarious, right?
Right.
But it's like, you know, 3 times.
Then you get that James Franco movie, the Stephen King short story, or the Stephen King book, 11/22/63 or whatever it was. And you go like, no.
No.
It feels like it would be, but nah, it turns out it wasn't.
Actually, not that fun. No, not that fun. So yeah, it's like, I don't know.
Matt, I'm going to let you do some talking for 45 seconds.
Okay.
Well,
Cool.
I fill a drink real quick, and
No
then I will be
worries.
back with you.
All good. What's up, people? Now it's just me and you. We're alone again. Take this time, guys, to check out the channel. Check out the other stuff on the channel. I have another obscure movie recommendee show coming out. I'm working on it. It's taken longer than I expected. OBS has been giving me a pain in the ass trying to capture footage. I know you don't really care, but it has been an issue, so I am working on it. The next episode will be out soon. It's a fun one, and I'm fucking around with the green screen a little bit more, so the videos have a little more pizzazz, and they're a little more focused too. Instead of doing three movies per episode, I'm doing one and doing a little more research and staying focused. Supposed to do another show with Lindsay tomorrow, but unfortunately, Lindsay's going through a lot of personal stuff right now. She's moving, and it's too much stress on her to unfortunately do another show. But we do have some great. God, I'm gonna make her come back because we're gonna do we're gonna talk about the movie Primer, which is like one of my favorite science fiction films ever, and one of her favorite movies, The Fall, which I forget the director's name. He's got like one name, like Prince or Madonna or something like that, which sounds pretentious, but the movie's actually really good. So that
Shane Carruth did Primer. Is that what you're asking?
no, yeah, not shit. No, a movie called The Fall.
Yes, Fall.
Yeah.
So
It's so good, and the director, he's got like a name, like one name. It's like
does he?
Malaba. Yeah, well, he did in the credits of that movie. I think he might not go by that anymore, but he did. But so that's
see.
the next that show should be out soon, guys. So keep a lookout for that.
Tarsum Singh.
Yes, and he just went by a film by Tarsum, is what it said, and I was like, oof, this is gonna be rough. But actually, I really like that movie. That's Lee Pace.
Yes, it is.
What the fuck? That was random. I was like, oh wow, hey, that's bad guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. And did you ever see that show that he was on called *Halt and Catch Fire*?
I didn't. I've heard rumblings of it.
I really liked the first season. I thought it was really good, but then it's one of those shows that I thought was a true story, and it turns out it wasn't. So I was like, once you find out it's not true, I'm like, oh, it was like The Help. It was like when you watch The Help, you're like, oh my god, what a powerful story. Like, oh, that was all made up. It's like, oh, well then fuck that
Then
story.
why?
Like,
Yeah, right.
why do it just to jerk yourself off? Ugh, gross.
Fair enough.
But I mean, I like so like what *Halt and Catch Fire* was like. The premise was that it was like these two companies were both at war to get the first like portable computer, like the first laptop out the gate before other people could do it. And it was like, you know, they had like this crazy programmer who was like all socially weird but really gifted and blah blah blah. But then it was really fascinating. And I think it's got some inspiration for real stuff, but I think overall it was just a made up story. And I was like, oh, well, that's not as much fun if you're just kind of like, yeah, I mean, you could just make up something, but it just, I don't know, it feels.
Right.
I liked it more when I thought it was based on real events.
But not Tarsum Singh, right? Just the lead actor
not-
from The Fall.
Yeah, no, it's just
he's
Lee
great.
Pace.
Okay.
He's great. Oh, and Lee Pace is great. He's not bad at all. He's terrific in the role. Actually, the cast is really good. It has the girl. God, I can't think of her name. She's very tall and pretty. She was in the new Terminator Dark Fate movie. She was like the good Terminator girl or whatever. She's like half a Terminator or something. And
I haven't seen the new Terminator.
Did you see Black Mirror?
Yes.
So this was, I think, season 2 or 3 when it's like the only Black Mirror with a happy ending. When like, is it like old people or dead people go into like the 80s world?
That like San Junipero or whatever.
Yes.
Yes.
She's the tall girl with the red hair. That's her.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think of her name, but she was like the eccentric, weird programmer in that show, in this *Halt and Catch Fire*. Which I mean, I really liked it. I can't say I recommend it, but if you're curious, I guess it didn't suck. I mean, I liked it at the time.
I'm finally watching Mad Men for the first time.
I have never watched that.
No, well, it's fine. It's good.
See, I thought that too. I watched the pilot. I was like, this isn't for me. Like, I don't like the acting style. I don't like. There's a lot of stuff I didn't like.
If you don't like the pilot, there's probably not much there for you. I mean, I'm in the first season still, so people who are diehard fans of Mad Men might be like, "There's so much more that goes on. It's mind bending, man." But where I am right now, I feel you. I'm enjoying it. I think the writing's really good. I feel like it shows that it was kind of a singular vision. I feel like you can always tell when it's made by a creator versus a committee.
Okay.
So I enjoy that aspect of it, which I like with Mrs. Maisel as well, that we were talking about earlier. That you can tell there's a singular vision.
Christina Hendricks is like one of the hottest women who's ever walked on the face of the earth. So I mean, that's compelling.
And she plays a total bitch. You hate her on the show.
You hate her?
So far.
That's funny.
I'm like 8 episodes in. So
I talked with John Hamm one time, bartending this party for this actor. It was like his birthday, and he was there. John Hamm was there. Cool fucking guy, man. Like totally normal, down to earth, no pretense, no like completely self-aware, but also authentic as fuck. I thought he was great. Yeah, he seemed like a really
that's
cool
great
guy.
to hear.
Yeah, it was.
Then I'd watch the show. Why not? If you like John Hamm.
It's funny because I haven't. Like I watched. What was that movie?
I would recommend Mrs. Maisel over Mad Men, if that means anything to you.
Your recommendation rings out much more for Mrs. Maisel than no. I watched. What was it with The Town where he's in it? Oh, God, I thought that was horrible.
He wasn't in The Town, was he?
John Hamm was. Yeah.
Was he?
He's a cop or an FBI agent or something.
Great, good for him.
Fucking garbage. This is a bad movie.
I'm happy for John Hamm.
I like John Hamm. Happy for him, but yeah, that movie sucked.
I haven't seen all of Ben Affleck's work. Happy for him too. Great. Make yourself go from chasing Amy.
Okay, so this kind of brings me to a topic. Okay, so because this movie almost falls into that. He did a movie a few years ago that I saw at the Producers Guild called Vast of Night, I think is what it's called.
No, Vast of Night is the one that I have asked you about.
Is that the one? Okay, so then
the alien abduction movie.
Oh, then that's definitely not it.
But he did do like a gangster movie with the word night.
Live by Night. Live by
Night.
That's what it's called.
That's right.
Movie fucking sucked.
It seemed like it would.
It was the most masturbatory, just self gratifying. Oh, it was.
You don't want it to be, but it feels like it would be.
Couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, every single challenge that came up, the guy just handled it really well and just crushed it, and that was it. There was no like there were a bunch of white supremacists, a bunch of KKK guys were like interfering with their operations. All right, we'll just kill them all. Moving on, and that was like what? Like, and it was like that with every single thing that came up. He was just perfect. And then there was like some girl he dated in the beginning, and in the end it came up or something, and it was just like, ew, you can't just throw an arc there on the end to like make it look like you're a filmmaker, dude. That was
right.
oh, man.
I know.
So it was.
I do root for Ben Affleck. I'll tell you, I've rooted for him since Mallrats. Chasing Amy, I was happy for him to get a leading actor role.
Him and Matt Damon being so cool with Kevin Smith, like especially when he was like young and up and coming.
I mean, I love Kevin Smith. I've stayed with Kevin Smith. I've seen Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Why
I have.
you do that? Why did you watch that?
I paid money to see it.
Oof.
That's how much I like Kevin Smith.
I watched
own Tusk.
30 seconds. I watched 30 seconds and I had to turn it off. I couldn't do it. I was like, this is just too sad.
You know what you're doing when you watch a Kevin Smith movie. Come on, Matt.
I don't think I always felt that way. It's rough.
See, Kevin
man.
Smith strikes such a personal chord with me. He's got a teenage
I'm from
daughter.
Jersey. I'm from New Jersey.
I know you are.
I like that guy was like one of my heroes, you know.
And I'm from Philly, if that needs
right, and you're from
Philly
the same
and Jersey.
area. And Philly and South Jersey are kind of like
we're across the river.
Mm-hmm.
We know each
I don't
other.
Know. Yeah. Dude, I can't watch his stuff anymore. Clerks 2 I thought was abominable.
Clerks 2 is fine for a Kevin Smith movie. I don't know. I feel like I judge a filmmaker by what they were intending.
To me, it's
and
like watching
the Batman very differently than I judge Clerks 2. An independent movie from a filmmaker from New Jersey who accidentally got famous with Clerks, who he put that movie on credit cards. He did not mean to be a filmmaker. Now he is a filmmaker. He's really a podcaster.
That is funny because I thought that I used to think that about Louis C.K. Like I used to think that he was just a brilliant performer and was performing the persona of a comedian, but actually didn't really want to. Like he was more of a filmmaker, being a comedian.
It's a shame we'll never get to see that.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. Did you watch his most recent special?
I watched his most recent special. I thought
it was really. I thought it was great. I mean, I thought it was really funny.
I did too.
I thought it was funny.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen his movie, his like Woody Allen movie where
did that come out?
I think it came out on his website.
Okay.
I think it's out in some way.
With Chloe Grace Moretz?
Yeah, where he's like playing Woody Allen.
Right.
Where he's like, weird. Yeah, I could sleep with underage girls and it's charming.
So the ideas that these guys have, it's like there's no one around you being like, are you sure that's how you want to be perceived?
There's something, I don't know. I'm of two minds about it. I'll watch your comedy because you didn't rape anybody. It's like
I'm not. I don't hold him on the same level as like I don't even really think he did anything wrong. I just think it was gross. It was just weird.
Yeah, I think maybe he did something wrong, but maybe not appropriate.
I mean, he asked for. If you ask for permission,
not on the same level as the filmmakers. I'm sure you're thinking of
not
people we shouldn't say out loud.
No, I don't even want it. I don't want to bother. I don't want to. It's like it's just like ugh no. Yeah, but because that and it was like, but I still thought it was fucking weird. So when I watched his special, and remember at the end where he addressed it, I wish he just did that first.
He should have.
He should have
because we were all thinking it.
And it was like you were thinking about it when he was making jokes. There's a little like, like you had like it fucked up the laughs because he didn't break the tension. The tension was still in the air the whole time. It was like, can you get over that, please?
I think he enjoys that like a little bit.
Maybe
that's my take on it. Is that he likes the little bit of tension.
You know what? I mean, if you watch Louis, the show Louis, like, I mean that's some of that's goddamn avant-garde. Like, I mean, it's just a lot of it. It's not even straight narrative.
Have you seen Baskets?
Oh, is that the Zach Galifianakis show?
It is a Zach Galifianakis show.
No.
I prefer to refer to it as the Louis Anderson show.
Louis Anderson?
He plays Zach Galifianakis' mother, but he plays it as,
Really? That's
he
funny.
plays it as himself, as he no affectation at all, just Louis Anderson. But like he's got a wig on. Yes, you know he's playing a mother.
That's pretty funny.
But he's playing it so straight as Louis Anderson. You go,
That's
like,
a
yes,
Louis C.K.
I
idea.
see now how Louis Anderson is a Midwestern mother. I see that.
That's funny. I think that's a good. That is hilarious. Like, and that's a very much a Louis C.K. kind of idea.
It is, and I would recommend it as some of the best of his shows, especially if you like the more avant-garde portions of Louis.
I go either way with avant-garde stuff. Like, how do you feel about Lynch? How do you like? Do you like David Lynch?
I'm half and half on him. I mean,
Me too.
No. Like, do I like rewatch Twin Peaks regular? Do I appreciate that Twin Peaks exists? Yes.
Mm-hmm. I like
Okay,
Twin
I
Peaks.
appreciate
think
that
Twin Peaks
exists.
is good.
But do I like rewatches? Do I rewatch Eraserhead regularly? No, it's not like a favorite movie of mine.
I don't like. I think it's really obnoxious that a requirement to appreciate a film is like an abstract arts degree. Like it's like
Right.
like
Which
oh
is
well
where
if I had a history in like these types of expressions, then I would get it. It's like
I like film for the narrative.
me
for
too. Me
the
too.
thematic with, you take the narrative as somebody that you can relate to.
Totally.
And you put them through the thematic trialings of whatever you're trying to say as a filmmaker.
I have no problem with the hero's journey whatsoever.
Neither do I. Wish I would hope I didn't.
But that's why I can't stand some of these guys like we talked about before. There Will Be Blood, Paul Thomas Anderson, or
Sure.
the more recent Coen
I haven't
brothers,
made it
where
through.
it's like an exercise of no exposition. They're like, I'm gonna make a movie with no exposition. It's like, well, then you didn't make a story, dude. Sorry.
There's a happy medium somewhere.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Christopher Nolan, as much as I love
Dunkirk.
Christopher Nolan, he's all exposition, that guy. And
Not
from what
Dunkirk,
I
though.
hear, I haven't seen Tenet yet. Maybe we can do
I
another
haven't
one of
either.
these when we've both seen Tenet then.
I'm down. Is that available?
No, it's in theaters. I feel like we could see it if we were willing to risk the COVID.
The bug. I'm
the
going
bug.
to San Diego for Labor Day, so I think
It was
maybe
just
I'll-
there.
Really?
Nobody in San Diego knows a bug is there. I'll tell you that.
I know. That's why I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to remember what civilization's like. I feel like I'm like
Beaches are open. All of the restaurants are like, we're open air. We've got windows.
Look at the fan. The fan's on.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So San Diego doesn't know there's a bug. It's good to
Yeah,
go to if that's what you're looking for.
I think that's great.
But I see Lynch as the antithesis of Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is all exposition. Interstellar is
hate
exposition
his
until the
dialogue.
climax. I know.
Batman Begins has some of the worst fucking dialogue I've ever seen. And like everyone's like, it's like one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. I'm like, are you fucking serious? No one talks like that. No one.
His dialogue is very, very, very bad. I
Abominable
will
in
give
that
you
movie. It gets better. He gets better, but in that movie, it's horrific. And Katie Holmes, like dude, like she's on an episode of Dawson's Creek. Like she put no extra energy into that. She's just like, I'm in this movie. It's like, oh my god, what are
Yeah.
you doing?
I don't know how much you can blame Katie. The plot centers around, you know what I mean? Where every scene are characters exposing the plot, getting to the next scene.
It is brutal.
That gets
It's
tiresome.
brutal.
And from what I hear, and I haven't seen it, Tenet is the epitome of this, where it's you wish you knew the exposition at the beginning, you don't. The exposition is the twist, which is kind of how Inception was.
Not a good movie either.
Inception is fine.
Fine, it's fine, but they act like it's fucking a masterpiece from another dimension that no one could possibly conceive of. It's not that good. You made DiCaprio boring, okay? That takes some work. That's hard to do.
That's fair. I feel like if if Inception existed in its own dimension, we would all be entertained. We would all be like thrilled to see Christopher Nolan's movies. I feel like
if we could
in
we
the
could
realm
travel.
of film, it's how the mainstream sees the right wing. It's very just safe, down the middle. Ooh, a couple surprises. We threw these in to surprise the left,
That's
It's
funny. like like when what's his name pretends he empathizes with the right when he makes his conservative characters. What's that guy's name? He always does.
oh god,
You know what I'm
I
talking
wouldn't
about?
I wouldn't be brave enough to suggest a name there, Matt.
That's the no. I'll say it's the guy in West Wing. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about.
I have to be honest with you. I made it through one season of West Wing, and
I
I
didn't
was
even
like, you know what? I'm
I watched
fine.
the pilot. I was like,
I get it.
this is not clever. This is not a masterpiece. This is masturbatory. We're all liberal and we all agree. And isn't it great? This is not. They treat him like he's this poet of breath. No, he's not. He makes these conservative characters, and you think, oh, he's considering them. No, he's not. He's using them to make his own points. It's not.
I
It's like Newsroom. It's like, oh, he's a Republican. Yeah, who hates like he's not like. What
I appreciated Newsroom, and I appreciated Studio 60 in the Sunset Strip about like one notch above what I'd consider West Wing. West Wing really feels to me like somebody honing his craft, and I get who Aaron Sorkin is from
Aaron
the first, like,
Sorkin,
five
that's
episodes.
his name.
That's the writer, the showrunner, I think, of
I think
West
so.
Wing.
Pretty sure. Look, there's no question he's a good writer. I just think he's up his own ass. Like, I don't think he is this like virtuoso that they give him credit for. Like, if I can see you coming from around the corner, then it's not that interesting to me, man. It's like, I'm sorry. Like, it's like that's why it's like, he did the Newsroom, which I liked, and I did like Jeff Daniels' character, and it was interesting to see. But it was like the movie was a left-wing platform about the media, and it was trying to make the media look like it's this empathetic thing when it isn't this soulless machine that like forces agenda like a Mack truck. It's like,
Well, it sounds like you're getting a little bit meta, which I would agree with. Where if you can feel the writer telling you what the theme of the story is, you're doing something wrong.
I agree, and that's
But that's also kind of Aaron Sorkin's thing,
yeah, you're right.
which you would appreciate in movies like The Social Network, where it's like, how are you getting a theme out of fucking Mark Zuckerberg making a social media account?
I forgot
Like-
that he wrote that because I like that movie.
He did. It's a good movie.
It is
He
a
wrote
good movie.
Molly's Game too. He directed Molly's Game.
I didn't see that.
It's exactly what you think it is.
I don't have any impression.
It's not
I have
gonna. It's
no
not going to change your opinion on Aaron Sorkin. I
Here's
think Aaron
why.
Sorkin is great on cocaine.
I don't know. I can't speak one way or the other, but I will say I do remember watching Charlie Wilson's War and thinking, wow, this guy is an efficient scriptwriter, because there was a sequence when he's in a hot tub and he's looking at a TV and some news story breaks. And honestly, the amount he accomplished in one like 2-minute scene, so I was like, wow, that was brilliant writing. Like, it established so much and got so much across in such a short period of time. I was like, that's pretty remarkable.
He is a great script writer. He's great with dialogue too. I mean,
Tremendous with dialogue. I think that's the illusion. Like that's the
people's criticism of him is generally that's what people sound like when you're in the shower the next day thinking about
That's what I
the
should have
arguments
said.
that he has.
Shark store. That's what I should have said. That's brilliant.
But it's
That's
true.
That's so true. Everyone's way too fast and too intelligent and too like, yeah.
They are. But at some point, like as a viewer, you like to see that. I like to see that in Social Network for sure.
I'll say I
like
liked
to
it in
see that in A
Newsroom.
Few Good Men. I like to see it in West Wing a little bit. Part of me wishes that like the president wasn't perfect. I mean, I'm only a season into it.
I
be
watched
honest
the
with
pilot. I watched the pilot and I was like, this is for me.
Right.
But I will say you're right. And there was when I was in acting class one time, my teacher pointed this out, and I was like, "Oh, that's actually brilliant. I like that. I think it's a good That is a good way to write scripts. And he said something like, I guess it was in particular to Newsroom and Sorkin. It was like people who are like really, really good at what they do, struggling incredibly hard against challenges that they could barely cusp. And I was like, I like that because I know, and I'm sure you found it because it.
Well, I've written for God, Matt.
Right, exactly. You've written for God.
And,
You've written for God.
I tried to not make him sound like a Sorkin script because there are points where when I was first going through coverage, people were like, "This is like a Sorkin script," and I'm like, "Oh no! I don't want God." I
know you mean that like a compliment, but that's not how I'm taking it.
Right. Well, I don't want God to feel like this character who's smug and who's thought of everything in the shower.
Right. No, it's not clever. It's not fun.
It's not.
And I was going to say too, like
human beings think of everything differently. We think of our clever lines. I mean, people are clever. You've heard of clever people before. That's why I like the marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah.
They're clever, but not omniscient. You know?
Yeah, and that was. Fuck! I had a thought and it's gone. Oh well.
Oh, please have your thought.
I don't know. It's gone. It went off into the. Oh, I was going to say when it comes to writing, because I'm sure you've faced this choice as a writer, because I know I faced it, and it was like, it's more convenient right now if this character's dumb, if they are just not thinking of a thing that I already thought of.
Right.
That would make it easier for me to accomplish this goal. And then you have a choice there. You have, okay, do you go lazy and he's just a dumb character? Or you're like, all right, no, they know. We have to work with this.
My choice every time has been, what is the audience thinking? Which was my goal in the movie I semi-plugged. I did a bad job. But...
No, I think you did a great job. That was a really concise plug. I think you were just put on the spot, but you did a good job.
Well, thank you, Matt, from Film Talk with Matt and Jared.
You're very welcome, Jared. the Jared.
My goal writing was to write where the audience was and not where the character was, which in a way almost feels self-destructive to the character, but I feel like audiences would go along with her. The protagonist is this woman, Gabby. I feel like audiences would go along with her more if they were asking the kind of questions audiences would ask than they would ask the questions we would ask as a film crew.
Yeah, I mean, what I found was that we should actually wrap up pretty soon. I think it's been a little bit over an hour, and I think it's been a pretty successful show. But I was thinking, well, what I discovered was that when I made that choice, right, and I decided, okay, so you read the script, so when Dina, when Kia is at it's hard to talk, but anyway. So like at one point, like Dina like figures out something, or is it Dina? Doré, sorry. God, no.
Are you talking Sunflower?
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically,
your viewers know about.
No, they don't. Which is why I realized how uninteresting this must sound. No, it's like at one point, this administrative character, this boss character, she figures out. She loses track of someone, and that someone is off doing something no good. Now, I had a choice there to decide that she wouldn't think of it and just whatever, we'll just not deal with that. Or she does think of it, and now there's a whole other little sequence where she's searching for Kia actively, right? And I was like, I have to go with this searching for Kia actively because it's a lazy choice if I don't do it. And I just have to do it right. So I did it right, and it turned out this whole new thing came up, and it ratcheted up the tension. It actually made it so much better to like be authentic to the character instead of just being like, it's more convenient for the plot if I do it this way. If I go that way, then it's like, oh, this is actually much more interesting, and it was a really rewarding choice. I mean, that's what I discovered anyway. But you see it in writing all the time. People are like, oh, they're dumb, they didn't know.
Mm-hmm. No, you always want to go with one step ahead of the audience.
Yeah.
not one step ahead of the character, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's wrap it up here, Jared. This was our first episode. Thanks for joining us, guys. This was Film Talk with Matt and Jared. I'm Matt, and that's Jared. Check out keep an eye out for Jared's movie, The Great and Terrible Day of the Lord. Is that the correct title?
That is.
It's a hell of a thing. I worked on it myself. I think it's going to be a great movie. I'm really excited to see it. And bro, like, way to go. Congratulations getting it finished and the whole thing. I'm really happy for you. And everyone else should check it out too.
Thank you,
and be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share comments, thoughts, the whole thing. And hopefully me and Jared can make this a regular thing because I had a lot of fun, buddy.
I'm up for it, man. Yeah, of course.
Fucking A, man. Fucking A. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks for joining us.
Take care, guys.